but definitely catch back up because I gave very distinct, very specific, here's what happened on the sideline because I was the one that saw it. So I was the one that shared it. Sam 48 saw it, and I saw it. And so you're hearing from one of the horse's mouths, like, this is what happened. Have no idea how that got misconstrued. But if it's one thing I can tell you all about, and I'm going to go back to this bad vibes and product on the field, is I'm glad that I'm one of the people that knows what's really happening, because I see how things can get misconstrued and be turned into something that is completely not, and how, quite frankly, flat out lies have been told. So this is why I thrive on authenticity and transparency and fact finding and dealing in reality, because a lot of this stuff is just not even, I don't even know where it's coming from. But I want to go back to the chance of Eric Bieniemy being a head coach on this team. If this is a big if, there are challenges with Coach Bieniemy, will he have a chance at being a head coach of this team? Now, this is me asking this question, quite frankly, without understanding or even knowing what the issues are. Here's what I do know. I do know that players previously wanted to know more about him, wanted to know more about why coach made the decision to give him a lot of the responsibilities that he did, because oftentimes what happens is, and we've seen this transpire before, is that head coach Ron Rivera will make decisions and then he will tell his players later. So I do know that there was a desire to learn more about Eric Bieniemy, learn more about his approach, learn more about why the changes were made, because those things were not shared previously. I do know that. Now, if there is in fact an issue with his coaching style or anything involving him, what do you do? And this is going to be a conversation that I'm going to continue to have, because here's the reality. We have to cover the team. I have to cover the team, right? And I am covering the team. And we can talk a lot about the actual game and analysis. But the reality is, this ownership group needs to be, in my opinion, already framing their vision for what they want this franchise to be. If this is a franchise that they want to see competitive and winning for the long term, then guess what? You already know the team's opponents through 2027. You know this. You know, we all know. This is public knowledge. We all know the team's opponents through 2027. That means you have to start planning now. You have to start planning now. You have to understand what your vision is going to be for today and tomorrow, because what you do today and tomorrow impacts everything you're doing going forward. All of it. So you have to sit and think, are these players that you see as a part of that vision? Does any of the coaches display a coaching style that you see is a trend in terms of what winning looks like for other organizations? What is going to be the balance in order to be competitive, winning football games consistently? Nobody out here is winning them all, but how do you become a consistent competitor in this league where you see the winning organizations are doing things now to get better tomorrow? They're always getting better, all the time. We see them do these things. I'd ask the question about, okay, well, hey, we know for a fact they need a new defensive coordinator. because that job is empty. It's being held right now by Coach Ron Rivera. And we know that they need a new defensive back coach. Okay. They're filling positions, but hey, we know that because that's based in reality. Would Eric Bieniemy be considered a casualty potentially of a failed coaching staff, or would he be considered a barrier to success based on feedback from your players? I don't know the answers to those questions. I'm putting them out there for consideration. This is why it's so difficult to evaluate, truly evaluate. And I'm going to share some things about, how would you evaluate him? How would you evaluate any coach? Not just Eric Bieniemy. I asked about Eric Bieniemy, but how would you evaluate a coach? How? Really? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to wins and losses. You can only be safe, truly, in my opinion, you can only be safe in your job if you won the Super Bowl. If you didn't win the Super Bowl, you can go. Potentially. That may sound crazy, but that's fact. Because the goal should be Super Bowl. Now, there's always measures to this and process to this. I'm not saying go to Carolina Panthers route. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is this ownership group, it's not as easy as you think. Because what's really going on this team? If there are bad vibes and then you see the product, I mean, the season is not gone well. I mean, this is just bottom of the barrel, actually. What do? Do you say, well, I'm going to take the player's perspective, or I'm going to take the coach's perspective, or how about you just have to set your vision for what you want? What is it that you want? And because right about now, are we seeing? And you all let me know in the chat what you think. Are we seeing a team that is basically being counterproductive because you don't like the approach of one of your coaches? I don't know. I'm not saying it is. I'm asking a question. Because these are the things that if you're in the ownership group, now I need to understand what's happening here. And not only do I need to understand what's happening here, I need to understand what's happening here because I need to understand who's going to fit the vision for how we do things moving forward. And if there could be some, hey, there's enough blame to go around. For real. Because at this point, I don't know if anybody I don't know if at the record the team is right now, if you can with confidence say, okay, this one can stay. And because how? Unless you go to an evaluation method, which would consider of a couple different things, right? When I asked this question, I'm pulling out some of the responses I really liked. And one of them was this one I really liked in terms of how you evaluate. And it was about Eric Bieniemy. But as I went in, I was like, well, wait, this could be for anybody, right? But Etienne Alexander says, okay, he should be evaluated on overall offense performance. I really like what he says here in terms of you compare last year's offense to this year's offense, meaning overall production. Also evaluate the last time this exact scenario took place, meaning first year starting quarterback along with first year OC, compare production to name a few. Here's why I like that, because that gets down to the numbers. Now, the season is different, right? So now then I would have to say, let me take this another step further. And now I would have to see, well, who are the consistent players through this point last year that was under a different offensive coordinator? Where are they this year in terms of production, in terms of play? And where were they last year? Where are they this year? I can say that. We know this point last year, Sam Howell hadn't even touched the field. So that's one of the things. But when you're talking evaluation and getting down into the numbers, I'm going to be real with y'all. A lot of people giving their opinion. And I'm like, you can't, no. Because the only other numbers you need to go on is wins and losses. And this is why I said, can you really give anybody a great assessment? Maybe individually, right? But if we're just doing this at wins and losses, I mean, who getting above a C? C plus? Is anybody getting above that? Truthfully, I'm just being honest. As a unit, what can you get? As a whole team, what are you going to get? Being fair. Because if everybody was performing B or above, record might look different. And that's meaning all parties involved. So being able to look at those numbers and see those comparisons, that's key. Now, I already told Masdak that I loved his response. Simple question. What are the categories? What should he be evaluated on? Again, going back to, truthfully, yes, I'm asking about Eric Bieniemy, but these then are categories that can be applied to anybody, right? So in this case, though, we're talking offensive performance, but depending on whomever, you can, if you're talking about the running backs, you can talk about the, a position coach, you can talk about that position's performance, right? Overall player development, again, that's something that's applicable even to position coaches. Now, the next one, in-game decision-making, that's not applicable to your position coaches, right? That really comes down to your coordinators and your head coach. Right, that comes down to them. In-game decision-making, game planning, all of those things, those types of adjustments. Team discipline and execution, leadership and culture, adaptability and innovation, communication and collaboration. I'm going to tell Masdak, I don't know if he's still watching live. If he's not, somebody tag him, give him a high five. Here's why I love this, because when I asked that question, most people only talked about football. That was it. Their opinion of the run game and this and that. You are in a leadership position. It takes more than running plays to be a leader. And here's why I'm concerned, and I'm sharing this out loud. Something is, in fact, off with this team. Something is off. If there's an issue in one of these other areas, team discipline, execution, leadership and team culture, adaptability and innovation, communication and collaboration. If there is a challenge in those very key areas to being a leader, I'm going to go back to DJ's question and I'm going to say, I don't know if he gets a fair shot at the head coaching position. I don't know. Because if this in fact are players that, hey, let's be clear too. Some of these players are players he inherited. Most of them are, right? So they are used to a different culture. They're used to a different communication style. If these people have an issue, then how do you rank? Because at that point, it has nothing to do with the game. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Now you got to make a hard decision. And this is why I say researching, I'm not waiting until I have a general manager in place and a head coach, a general manager to pick a head coach, to pick all the scouts and the talent evaluators and everybody else to be in place for me to research what are the winning organizations doing, the top players in the league. Who drafted them? I asked another question, and this was by design as well. I said, who are your favorite players in the league? Not from your favorite team. Who are your favorite players? Some people had long lists. Some people had shorter lists. But at the end of the day, if I'm a part of this leadership team, I want to know who found them. And I want to know how they did it. What was your approach? That's part of research. That's part of understanding your landscape. All of the bowl games, all of the Senior Bowls, all of those opportunities would be missed because, truth be told, you would want, and I've said this on the show before, whomever you would want, hopefully, is playing well into January, hopefully, even February, right? By rule, you can't necessarily interview, you can't do a whole lot, at least like during the regular season. And you can have conversations, but you gotta be kind of cool on some of that stuff, right? Really can't interview and really get going until your season is over. If this leadership team, if this organization, if this ownership group waits, you already late. You already, because hey, listen, everybody knows the hierarchical order. That's not new news. But what I think may be new news is the fact that the best organizations are trying to get better every single day. They're not waiting. You want to know the result of not researching and not trying to get better and thinking and being complacent in the now? It has gotten the Washington Commanders, Ron Rivera, as the defensive coordinator. That's what not researching and preparing and planning. Anything can happen. Aside from firing, somebody could get sick, somebody could die, anything can happen, and you don't have somebody who could come up through within and be ready to go. I need to know today. You have the schedules through 2027. You know who you're playing. You may not know which weeks you're playing, but you know who you're playing. And I'm gonna tell you something else. This ownership group this gonna be hard. And that's why I asked the questions of what are you evaluating? Because it's not until you get into it, not until you're still talking to people, that you really understand all that goes into evaluating. Because here we have, and everybody's hollering and screaming, hey, Eric Bieniemy need a shot at head coach. But then you got rumblings and rumor mills like players want Ron Rivera to take some of his responsibilities back. Wait a minute. That is a challenge. Because who do you believe? How do you truly assess? And based on who do you believe, how do you really truly assess? That is then, I'm checking the vision for what this organization needs to be like in the short term and in the long term. And if you don't fit, then you're out. But you can't just write off player feedback, can you? You can. You absolutely can. But is that a good thing to do? Because oftentimes in leadership as well, and in any evaluation capacity, a good measure, a good process to do that is you have your leaders evaluate you, you have your peers evaluate you, and then you have the people that report to you evaluate you. That's 3 different levels in the chain that gives you your marks on evaluation. And I'm going to shout out NASDAQ again because, hey, the game matters. In true facts, they can say, they meaning the ownership group can say, everybody can go. Everybody, literally. Or they could say, okay, here's the pieces that fit the vision for where we're going to go, what we want to do. And we also have to consider, are you doing full rebuild or are you being aggressive up front? And if you're going to be aggressive up front, then that means you have to find people that fits your culture now. Don't try to get them and then sway them and change them and turn them into somebody that they're not. You're going to have to be that when you interview them, when you're scouting them, when you're watching them, when you're going to their games. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Everybody's like, no, they got to get a GM first. Yeah, we know all that. But so what they supposed to do? They're supposed to tell all their scouts out every single week in every region for every team. So what they supposed to pull everybody and tell everybody come back home? We're not scouting. We're not looking for no more people. We're not doing anything. Oh no. You have to, because I will tell you all, if you all ever, I don't think I've ever probably lost it on the show or anything of that regard previously. I don't think so. I like lost it, like had a meltdown. But if ever I were going to, it would be if I found out that the organization, the ownership level was not doing research. I would be livid. But I already know that's not true. So y'all don't have to worry about that. But I just want to explain to you all that research and trying to get better is always happening. Whether it's on Front Street, whether or not somebody has put together a statement and said, hey, let's go tell the fans this. No, it's always happening. Whether or not what they decide to do, who knows? But I already know that's not happening. But you should expect and want the organization to be always researching and figuring out how to get better at every single position, right? I mean, Eric Bieniemy said it the best, in my opinion, a few weeks ago at the beginning of the season. You're dealing in a business that it's a hiring sign outside every day. Every day you are auditioning for your job. No one should feel safe. No one should feel secure. No one should feel like, hey, I'm good. Because you're not. Unless you won the Super Bowl, maybe. If you didn't, you auditioning for your job every single day, which requires me and everybody else, hopefully, you all as well, understanding what's happening in the industry. Aside from the Commanders, who's still watching the Washington Commanders update, drop in the chat, who are your favorite? You've already told me your favorite players. I've already told y'all my find out who found them. Find out who found them. Who found them? Because that's important. It's very important. That is an important point. Who found those people? Who found them? I need to know that. Drop in the chat who your favorite teams to watch play are. Because at this point, it can't be the Washington Commanders. That might be your favorite team, but it may not be your favorite team to watch right now. You have to have another team that you like, daggone it, they're good. That's some good stuff right there. Being totally objective. Drop in the chat who are your favorite teams to watch and why, and how these teams are consistently getting better, and who they have. Teams always are trying to get better every single day. They're not waiting for the walls to come tumbling down to not get better. They shouldn't be. Good teams don't. Good owners don't. Now, they may not be making Carolina Panthers moves, but you got to be able to learn from what your peers across the league are doing. I'll leave you all with this. There's a lot of pieces here that I believe have contributed to the demise of this team. And I'm going to use something that I've used in the past. And that is look at the common denominators and look at what is different. Look at where the common denominators are. Look at things that are different. Oftentimes where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, there's some instances, like I said earlier, where things get out and it gets misconstrued or it's a flat out lie. And I'm going to just say that right here on this show, or if you talk to me, I'm going to say that's not even true. They don't believe that. I will say it's not hunky-dory. It's not at all. And it will be interesting to see what this ownership group stamps as the vision for the future and what they want. What they want it to be. And let me say this, because I see Nasdaq your comment here about you be worried if it was. Here's where I want to highlight. No, it's not hunky dory. How would it be based on how you're losing? But if there are players that want Coach Rivera to take some of his head coaching responsibilities back, that should raise some concerns in different ways, for sure. So we're going to keep watching 6 more weeks. Yes, there's 5 more games. They got a bye in there, but we're talking about the Miami Dolphins, then the bye, then the Rams, then the then the Jets, then the San Francisco 49ers, and the Dallas Cowboys. And we're looking at a team that has not won one division game all season. That's pathetic. That's really pathetic. It's pretty bad. And we're also not seeing a team that's getting better either. They're actually getting worse. So it's a long way to go. And maybe they'll show up with Coach being the defensive coordinator. Maybe they'll show up better, since there are so many players that love that man. They love Ron Rivera. I have told y'all this. I have said this to you all. They love Ron Rivera. Absolutely. His team loves him. Not a negative word about Ron Rivera. That's facts. So this will indeed be interesting, and this ownership group has a very tall task ahead of them. As we continue to track the season, we'll be talking a lot more, and we're going to keep going back to the evaluation criteria. And we're going to keep going back to what we think. And I say we because I'll be pulling Darrell in. Tell Karita we're going to pull her in too, because she's going to keep us in the know. We'll do a separate segment on Ravens and all those topics as they continue to play, and make sure we're tapping to that fan base as well. But we got to start looking at what else is out there from a picks perspective, from a you name it perspective. It's a strong possibility that they all go. And then there's a strong possibility that some stay. Who that some are remains to be seen, right? So it's still a very long season, because that research piece is huge. And I'm going a different route with this. I'm not necessarily going with the household names that everybody knows. I'm not looking there. I'm not looking there at all. We're seeing a shift in the league, and I think that this ownership group needs to be on top of that shift for sure, because the Commanders are already so behind in that area, in the trends, in moving forward, in what's truly winning football games. All right, you all, try to be strong, because this is rough. You all be well. Thank you, as always, for watching. Again, this was from the Culture from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I am your host, CWall. You can catch this show each and every single day on Verizon Channel 11, Bowie Television, and Comcast Xfinity Channel 77 from 1:30 to 2:30, and on the weekends during the noon hour. You all listen. Try to stay level, but definitely start paying attention to what some of the other teams are doing and being successful at. I think you're going to want to pay attention to a lot of that starting now. Talk to y'all soon.